Hello, my name is Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm best known for writing the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What I'm here today is say welcome to our website and give you a little background information of what makes Rich Dad's financial education different than other financial information companies. First of all, I want to talk about the importance of education. You see, in the world today, we go to school for academic education, reading and writing. Now that's very, very important. My poor dad was a PhD, the head of education in the state of Hawaii, and he really stressed at the importance of academic education, and it is. Unfortunately, being the superintendent of education's son, I wasn't the brightest kid around, and I did flunk out of high school twice because I had a hard time reading and writing. Now, I did graduate from college. I do have a Bachelor of Science degree, but I'm not very good at academic education. Professional education is where they become, a doctor or a mechanic or a web programmer or whatever you do. So professional education is very important, and my mother wanted me to be a doctor, but because my academic grades were so bad, she says, well, I guess you won't be a doctor. And the third type of education that's required, especially today, to be successful is financial education. And unfortunately, our school systems do not teach us much about money. For some reason, our school systems seem to think, that money might be the root of all evil or something. Yet to be successful in the world today, financial education is extremely important. Because of this lack of financial education, we see the rich getting excessively rich. Today we have kids who are 20 years old who are billionaires, and guys my age, after working 40 years have nothing to show for it. So the gap between the rich and the poor is dangerously extreme. Many of the middle class are going from middle class to poor. So that's why financial education is crucial today if you want to, keep your head above water. Because ultimately, this is your greatest asset. You are responsible for your education and what goes in your head. And what the Rich Dad Company does is provide the financial education my rich dad gave me. When I was just 9 years old, my rich dad began to teach me to be a rich man playing the game of Monopoly. And he said the formula for great wealth is found in this great game board, and most of us know the formula for great wealth. It's 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So as a little boy at 9 years old, I learned that. And today, even though I wasn't good academically, I'm not too strong professionally, I'm a wealthy person because my rich dad took the time to teach me the importance of financial education. So to be successful today, we need academic, professional, and financial education. And financial education is what the Rich Dad Company is all about. One of the more important lessons my rich dad taught me, he said there was 4 types of people in the world of business or money, whatever he said. And this here are the 4 different types of people, and he called this the cash flow quadrant. So E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed, small business or specialist like a doctor or a lawyer. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and I stands for investor. Now the distinction here is that each of these are 4 different types of people. They have 4 different tax laws for all 4 different types of people, and this is throughout the world. But it was my poor dad who always said to me, son, go to school so you can get a job. So my poor dad wanted me to be an employee like him. And there's nothing wrong with that and all this, except the tax laws are the worst for employees. As Warren Buffett says, he, as a business owner and investor, he pays a lower percentage rate than the employees. And many employees are having a tough time today. Not only is there high gas prices, but there's going to be higher taxes. My mother wanted me to become a doctor or a specialist or a small business person. And I said to my mom, S stands for smart. She says, you got a good point there, because I didn't do well in school, so I wasn't going to make it there. It was my rich dad who advised me to become an entrepreneur or a big business owner like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, all those guys that created Facebook and Yahoo and all this, or Google. And he wanted me to become an investor. So he started me playing the game of Monopoly, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So I learned to be an investor, and I learned to be an entrepreneur. So the good news is, if you want to get rich, you can get rich in all 4 quadrants, okay? That's up to you. So if it's time for you to move from the E or the S over to the B or the I, the entrepreneur or the investor, then welcome. The Rich Dad website is the website for you. One of the things that makes the Rich Dad Company different is most people think that savings is smart, but my rich dad told me years ago that savers are losers. Now, I know this goes against the grain of what most people tell you, save money, save money, save money. But the reason savers are losers began back in 1971. And in 1971, President Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard and made the U.S. dollar the reserve currency of the world. One of the reasons we have so much economic volatility in our economies today, high gas prices, high food prices, stock market booms and busts, housing values going down, all can be attributed back to 1971. Plus, there are other changes. So what makes the Rich Dad Company different is that we do not really subscribe to the idea of being a saver. We think it's more important you learn to be an investor. Like if you had invested in oil 10 years ago, you'd be a rich person today, even though savers are losers. If you invested in gold 10 years ago, you would have been a lot better off. If you had invested in rental real estate 10 years ago, you would have been way ahead of the savers. So if you want to get ahead, you need to not be a saver, but learn to be an entrepreneur or an investor. And that's what the Rich Dad Company stands for. In 1997, when I released Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that book caused a bit of an upset because I said, your house is not an asset. So in today's world, if you want to be rich, you have to know the difference between assets versus liabilities. One of the reasons so many people are struggling financially today is simply because they're calling their liabilities assets, such as your house is not an asset, your car is not an asset, and things like that. So very simply, when I was a young boy, my rich dad taught me, he says, you have to understand a financial statement. So this is an income statement, this is a balance sheet. Now this is overly simplified. He says what creates something to be an asset is very simply assets, cash flow money into your pocket. And a liability takes money from your pocket. So for most people, their houses are not assets or liabilities because every month it takes money to live in that house. Even those who say, well, I don't have any debt on my house, I've paid it off. Look, you still have insurance, still have upkeep, you still have maintenance. So let me explain this. I'm not saying don't buy a house or don't buy this and all this. I said if this is a house and I rent the house out and every month it's putting money in my pocket more than my expenses, then that house is an asset. Now that very same house, if it goes unrented or somebody trashes it or whatever they do, that very same house can be a liability. So a house can be an asset or a liability depending upon the most important word in business. It's called cash flow. Once again, if cash flows into your pocket, it's an asset. If cash flows out, it's a liability. Think of it this way. If you stop working today, how much cash keeps flowing in? That's from assets. And if cash keeps flowing out, that's a liability. So I'm not saying don't buy a house. I'm just saying don't call a liability an asset. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company different. Another thing that sets the Rich Dad Company apart is most people think that debt is a four-letter word, which it is. And they keep saying get out of debt, get out of debt. But if you're going to be financially intelligent today, you have to know there's good debt and bad debt. And simply put, good debt makes you rich and bad debt makes you poor. As I said earlier, is that my rich dad taught me to be a rich man playing Monopoly. So the formula is a very simple one, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So let me say I have a house here, but it's my dream house and I have a big mortgage. Interesting, the word mortgage means death, engaged until death. So if the cash is flowing out of your pocket every month, which most dream houses do, then that is bad debt. At the same time, if I have a green house and I still have a mortgage or debt, but the cash is flowing into my pocket, then that's good debt. So to be rich, the Rich Dad Company really believes that improve your financial IQ, know there's in good debt and bad debt, and if you have good debt, you get richer and richer. If you have bad debt, which is debt that takes money out of your pocket every month, like your credit card, your car payments and stuff like that, then that's bad debt. So in this day and age, it's important to know the difference between good debt and bad debt. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company different. There are many, many people who always tell you, live below your means. Well, that's not a Rich Dad philosophy either. Because I think if you live below your means, and especially if you're poor already, you live below the means, your spirit dies. So what the Rich Dad Company is really about is how do you improve your spirit by increasing your financial intelligence or your financial IQ. Instead of living below my means, or what most people have as a job, a job, You can only work so hard. So my goal, my wife's goal every single year is we increase our assets. So we buy more rental property, we invest in oil, gold, stocks to pay dividends and all this. So every year our income or our cash flow keeps increasing. Every year. Our goal is not to get a higher paying job. Our goal is to keep increasing our assets. Now another thing too is people say, but you know, what about the nice cars and all that? The way I get rich is this: I buy assets first, liabilities second. Let me give you an example. A few years ago I wanted a new Porsche. So let's say this is the Porsche here. My wife says, you can have that Porsche. It's a liability. But you can have it as long as I first invest in an asset. So this was a long time ago. I invested a few $1,000s in a mini storage in Austin, Texas, and every month the money from that investment comes in and it paid off my Porsche. So today I don't have any debt for my Porsche. I still have my Porsche, still have it all this time. I still have the investment and I still have my cash flow. So that's one of the differences between don't live below your means. We used to say, what we say at Rich Dad is increase your means and you can have anything you like. We want you to have all the wonderful things this world has to offer. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company's philosophy a little different than the rest. You know, most people say go to school and get a good, safe, secure job and put it in a 401k or mutual funds and all this. What they should be teaching people, and what makes the Rich Dad Company different, is we educate people to the point of view there's 3 different types of income. There's earned income, portfolio income, and passive income. When you say to somebody, go to school and get a safe, secure job, that's earned income. When you say to somebody, you know, buy this house because the price may go up or the stock may go up, that's portfolio income. It's also called capital gains. And passive income is income that just comes to you on a regular basis here. Now the difference here, this is the most highly taxed of all incomes. In the U.S., it's at least 50% for most people. Portfolio today is about 20%, and passive, if you're smart and you know what you're doing, you can get it down to 0% legally. And I do emphasize doing it legally. So since tax is your highest expense, then why not work hard for passive income? Unfortunately, if you're an E or an S, then you're primarily working for earned income. If you put your money into savings or a 401k retirement, that too is earned income. So for most people who are following traditional advice, they're working for the most expensive of all incomes. It's earned income. The Rich Dad Company teaches people to be B's and I's and the advantages of working hard for portfolio and passive income. And that makes a very big difference since taxes are your greatest expense. So part of your financial education is learn the different types of income, the different types of taxes, because taxes are not fair. They always incentivize the entrepreneur and the investor. Learning to be or B or an I is what the Rich Dad Company stands for. Most financial experts want you to believe that investing is risky. Well, the Rich Dad Company says investing is not risky. What is risky is not improving your financial intelligence or your financial IQ, having no financial education. So let me give you a few examples. There's 2 basic types of investors. One is fundamental. I would say Warren Buffett is a fundamental investor. That's income, expense, assets, liabilities. Most people, since they can't read a financial statement, really don't understand the fundamentals. And that's what the cash flow company, that's what the cash flow game teaches people, is how to be fundamentals. We also, and that's Cash Flow 101, we have a game called Cash Flow 202. Cash Flow 202 is called technical investing. We all know markets go up and markets go down. Markets go up and markets go down. So the reason the average person thinks investing is risky is because prices go up and then they lose everything. Prices go up and they lose everything. The reason investing is risky is that to be a professional investor, whether it's fundamental or technical, Cash Flow 101 or the 202 game, is you have to use insurance. Look, ladies and gentlemen, you do not drive a car without insurance. You know, you don't buy a house without insurance. Yet the average person putting their money in a stock or a mutual fund or a bond, they don't have insurance. That's what's risky. If you're going to be a professional investor, you have to understand markets go up and down. That's not news. But when markets are up, you buy an insurance policy here in case it goes down. For some people, that's called a put. Or you can put a stop. In real estate, my banker requires me to have disaster insurance. So the point here, ladies and gentlemen, is this. is that investing is not risky. It's taking advice from people who don't know what they're talking about a lot of the time, or people who don't sell you the insurance. That's risky. To put yourself in a stock or a mutual fund without insurance is absolutely risky. It's no more sense than buying a car and not having insurance. So ladies and gentlemen, investing is not risky. Being financially not sophisticated, not educated, and taking advice from people who also believe investing is risky is the riskiest part of investing. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company different. As I said, our school systems teach us not much about money. And I talk about the game of Monopoly, how I learned to be rich playing that game, and how I created the cash flow games 101 and 202. But a lot of people say, well, I don't like playing games. Yet I look at life as a game. You know, I played sports. I was pretty good at sports. I like sports, a lot better than school. But anyway, in many sports there are 4 quarters. So when I look at the game of money, my rich dad broke it into 4 quarters. He said, at which age will you win the game of money? So the 4 quarters are, and they're about 10 years. Since we generally start work around 25 and we retire around 65, that gives us 40 years or 10-year quarters. Now some people, like Rich Dad's son, he was born rich, or Paris Hilton was born rich. I wasn't so lucky. So I went to college, did all this thing, and I started my career at 25, and my goal was to retire in the 2nd quarter. So the 1st quarter is 25 to 35, 1st quarter, 35 to 45, the 2nd quarter. Okay? Then we have halftime. This is also called midlife crisis. You go, holy mackerel, I'm not making it. I'm too deeply in debt and all this. And sometimes you go into a huddle and make some changes. Then we have 45 to 55, which is 3rd quarter, 55 to 65, which is 4th quarter. Then it's overtime. You know, I don't have enough money. I can't retire. Where's my Social Security? Where's my Medicare? It's overtime. And I won't say anything, but after that, you're out of time. Okay? So one of the reasons for playing the cash flow games 101 and 202 and increasing your financial intelligence is so that you can get on with your life. If you follow the advice of work hard, save money, invest in a 401k for the rest of your life, you'll be old. You'll work all your life, and you might not have anything to show for it if the market crashes, if there's no Social Security, or if the golden hen dies, whatever the case is. So I had a goal to increase my financial intelligence and do my best to retire in the 2nd quarter. Now, it took me a little longer. It took me till I was 47. My wife retired at age 37, so she was technically 2nd quarter, but she was basically finished by the 1st quarter of her life. So one of the things that makes the Rich Dad Company different is we don't want you to work hard all your life and put your money away in a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds, because you'll be old. Why be old? Why not get, retire young, or as young as you can, even over here, and start enjoying life? To me, it makes no sense to work hard all your life and then to go into overtime, then out of time, and still not have enough money. So what the Rich Dad Company stands for is increase your financial IQ, because this is still your best asset, and that's what the Rich Dad Company stands for. As I said, starting at the age of 9, my rich dad started teaching me to be a rich man by playing the game Monopoly. So in 1994, my wife Kim and I decided, why don't we put onto a game board what my rich dad taught me so people can have fun learning. So this here is the cash flow game. There's actually 2 game boards. This is the first one. The first thing here, you notice there's 2 tracks. This is called the fast track, and this is called the rat race. And most people are trapped in the rat race. So if you follow the advice of go to school and get a safe, secure job and buy a house and have kids, you get stuck inside this rat race and you never get out. So the object of the cash flow game is to increase your financial IQ so you can get out of the rat race, to have more passive income so you don't have to work anymore, so your money's working hard for you. Then you get on the fast track. Now, there really does exist a fast track. In 1933, a man named Joseph Kennedy, father of President John Kennedy, head of the, I think it was the SEC, declared that the fast track was only for rich guys and women. So you had to be a rich person to invest on the fast track. So today, the investments I do are not in the rat race. I don't buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. I invest out here. So to invest out here, number 1, you have to be rich, and number 2, you should be financially educated. The reason so many pro athletes and movie stars lose their money is they have the money, but they don't have the financial education. So they get taken by some of the biggest land sharks on planet Earth who operate out here. So if you're going to be out here, You need two things, money and education. So that's what this game board is designed to do, and it's to assist you to get out of the rat race and onto the fast track. So this is the first game board of the cash flow game, and now we'll go on to the second game board. And this, you may recognize, is a financial statement. This financial statement is what separates cash flow from the game of Monopoly. This financial statement here, now don't get intimidated by it, but it's a very important aspect of your financial education. For example, is my banker has never asked me for my report card. My banker has never asked me, if I had good grades, what school I went to. When I go to borrow money, millions of dollars, my banker wants to see my financial statement. So in the real world, outside of school, this is your report card. Your financial statement tells the banker how smart you are, or do you need remedial education, So cash flow, the game was designed to make this, which is technically known as accounting, the single most boring subject on earth, fun. So cash flow teaches you two things. It takes the most boring subject on earth, which is accounting, married with the most terrifying subject on earth, which is investing, and we put it together in a game. So this here is a very important aspect of the cash flow game. It's what separates Monopoly from cash flow. So let's go back to the cash flow game, and I'll explain how putting both accounting and investing together is a very important educational tool for your financial education. So now you've seen the second board game, which is a financial statement, and that part can be intimidating to some people, especially if you're not good with numbers or words or just getting new. So let me explain to you why games are so important. As a child, I didn't do well in school. Every time I made a mistake, the teacher would punish me. I don't have a good memory. I was probably ADD, it's hyperfidgety and all this stuff. So the reason I love games, and the reason I created the cash flow game, is whether you did well in school or not, the more you play this game, the smarter you get. And the problem with my poor dad was he thought making mistakes was bad. Look, the only place it's bad is in school. In the real world, the person who makes the most mistakes and learns from it wins. So the reason I created the cash flow board game to get you out of the rat race is you can play this game over and over and over. I want you to make as many mistakes as you can. We have cash flow clubs and cash flow franchises. You can play this game for free or for a very nominal cost. But I hear so many people say, well, I played the game once. I said, well, how do you learn anything once? You don't learn to be a great golfer playing once. You don't learn to drive just driving once. True education is about repetitive, making mistakes, trying new things, and learning. So the beauty of the cash flow game is have fun. Make as many mistakes as you can. Play it as often as you can. Take risks. It's only playing money. Have a good time. And the cash flow clubs have a 10-lesson curriculum. Go through the 10 lessons. Join with like-minded people, but have fun. Make mistakes. The reason my poor dad was poor was because he was terrified of making a mistake. And I don't want you to make mistakes financially in the real world. I don't want you to pay somebody to lose your money. Play this game as many times as you take until you get comfortable that you understand how to get out of the rat race, on the fast rate, how assets, how liabilities work. But have fun. Practice. Make as many mistakes as possible, and that's how you get financially smarter. This stuff about school, having a good memory and just listening to lectures, is not true learning. To me, that was torture in school. So the reason I love the cash flow game, the reason my wife and I created it in 1994, is we wanted you to have fun, play as many times as you can, teach other people. The more you teach other people, the more you learn. So that's the way it is. So even if you didn't do well in school like me, it doesn't mean you can't get rich. You do have a high financial intelligence, but it's up to you to bring that intelligence out, and that's what the game was designed to do. Make mistakes, have fun, get rich. And that's the difference with the Rich Dad Company. Years ago, Arizona State University came by to evaluate the value of our cash flow game. Could it really be used as a teaching tool? And thank God they found out it was a great tool. They evaluated students who were in the MBA program, and could the cash flow game enhance their knowledge of business, investing, and finance and things like that. So one of the things that Arizona State came up with is from Professor Dale, which came out in 1969, which I thought was very interesting. So I said, I didn't do well in school. And this thing here is called the cone of learning. And what they found out is people like me don't do well in school because the worst way to learn is by reading. Those of you buying my books, keep buying books though, okay? So I didn't do well in school because I'm a very poor reader. The second worst way of learning is hearing words or lecture. So kids like me in school just don't do well because I fidget a lot, I don't like lecture, and I'm a poor reader. So you can go up and it says you can watch a movie, watching a demonstration and all this, and this is all kind of passive learning. So being hyperactive and probably ADD, this is not the way I learn. So the reason I like games and the reason the cash flow game is a valuable teaching tool is when you go to active. Now, the best way to learn is do the real thing. For instance, if you want to invest in real estate, the best thing you can do is go do it. If you want to play the stock market, you got to do it. The second best thing, though, is simulating the real experience. And what Arizona State found was a cash flow game was as close to a simulation of the real thing, which is why I say the game was designed for you to play over and over and over again, to make mistakes, to learn, to correct, to adjust your brain. So that's why I love games, and I'm really glad to find out way back in 1969, Professor Dale found out the same thing I already knew, that by playing games and having fun is one of the best ways you can learn. So even if you didn't do well in school or not, just by playing the game, you get smarter and smarter, you learn the vocabulary, learn how numbers work and all this. So this is a big part of the Rich Dad experience. You know, once you understand the game and our books, then we have Rich Dad's coaching, we have Rich Dad's education, we have medium and advanced seminars. But once you're ready to move on, when you feel confident in your ability to learn. So after you've done that, then you go do the real thing. So the reason most people get hammered on the real market out there is because they jump in, they have no experience, they do the real thing, and they lose all their money, and they wonder what happens. Then they turn their money over to somebody they pay to lose their money. Because most financial advisors are not really advisors, they're really salespeople. You know, as I always said, they're called brokers, stock brokers, real estate brokers, insurance brokers. As my rich dad said, the reason they're called brokers, because they're broker than you. So if you want to get rich, practice, play the game over and over and over again, and soon you'll start to think like a rich man. And that's what makes the Rich Dad Company different.
Hey there, are you an expert? Well, if you're a coach or a professional speaker, we are issuing a call to action for subject experts of all kinds to come and interview on our news channel, coachingbysubjectexperts.com. We specifically are looking for great content to share with our whole audience. If you have a great business service or a product that would be of interest to an audience, we want to hear from you. Just email us at coachingbysubjectexperts@gmail.com or visit coachingbysubjectexperts.com.
Hit it, Dave. I test you top talent, different subject experts, learn from the best, powerful co-op marketing, national distribution, the social media network. Spread your ideas globally, join national brand efforts, coaching by subject, experts.com. Over the top marketing results from different subject experts. Learn from the best. Spread your ideas globally. Become a top gun. Get in touch today. Coaching by subject. Experts.com. Woo!
coachingbysubjectexperts.com.